A live look at President Trump arriving in West Palm Beach, Florida this evening to spend the weekend at his weekend place in Mar-a-Lago. Been quite a day for the president. Tonight, he vowed never again, reluctantly signing a $1.3 trillion budget bill. Watch this.
There are a lot of things that I'm unhappy about in this bill. But I say to Congress, I will never sign another bill like this again. I'm not going to do it again. Nobody read it. It's only hours old. Some people don't even know what it is. $1.3 trillion. It's the second largest ever.
Nobody read it. Don't you love that part? But a number of Republicans are questioning exactly what the GOP got out of this deal and whether Mr. Trump, as some have said today, got rolled by the Democrats.
This is Ann Coulter reacting, Jennifer. She tweeted out, "Congratulations, President Schumer," essentially saying that the president got played here. "I will never sign another bill like this again." She's quoting from the president. "Yeah, because you'll be impeached."
This president promised to drain the swamp. He's a jobs program for the swamp. He says he's going to drain the swamp, but he's the best thing that's ever happened to the swamp.
The Democrats really got most of what they wanted in this bill. Democrats weren't necessarily opposed to more defense spending. They just didn't want to give defense spending until they got a lot on domestic spending, and they got most of what they wanted.
They sure did. Joining me now, Corey Lewandowski, former Trump campaign manager and chief strategist at America First Action. Corey, good to see you tonight. President's getting a lot of criticism on this from his base and from his supporters who believe that basically the Democrats did get everything they wanted in this very fat bill and that there's no fiscal responsibility happening on his watch at this point.
You know, what the president said today when he signed that bill was he was very disappointed in what the bill had in total. But there were some key components of this legislation that are important, and let me just highlight a few of them. $650 billion for the military. That will allow our men and women in uniform to get the first pay raise they've had, the largest pay raise they've had in over a decade. You know, we're talking about 24 new Navy ships. We're at the smallest Navy we've had in a lifetime. We're talking about 90 new aircrafts, new F-35s. We're talking about opportunities to rebuild our military so we can continue to be the world's greatest superpower. But in addition to the military, this bill funded $6 billion to fight the devastating opiate crisis, which is wreaking havoc across our country. We need to get this under control. Is this a perfect bill? Absolutely not. Did the president say it was a bill for national security? It is a bill for national security.
No, I got you,
I'm very concerned about the amount of spending here.
I don't like this spending. Because, as you know, last night he sort of stunned, I think, a lot of people at the White House by coming out and saying he was going to veto the bill. Then this morning there was this whole scramble. He's going to do a news conference. Then he wasn't going to do a news conference. Then they moved the reporters from the press room over to the diplomatic receiving room. And he gave, a straightforward speech. I think that there's a feeling that he didn't do what he wanted to do here initially. His gut was telling him that he should veto this bill. He had a lot of his supporters who wanted him to do that. So the question tonight is what happened?
I think you might be right. I think his gut was telling him that this was a bad piece of legislation. Many of the things that are in this bill, he campaigned against. And what we've seen once again, it's amazing. You know what Congress did? They went home again. The government's about to shut down. They put one piece of legislation from the president. They say, we put a gun to your head. You're going to sign this or we're going to close the government. It's going to be your fault. Why haven't we been able to keep the government open for a multi-year period? This is astonishing to me.
Yeah, but Corey, what about those people who say you've got Republicans in the House, Republicans in the Senate, Republicans in the White House? We thought this was going to be a fiscally responsible White House and administration, and they're wondering what the heck is happening.
Well, look, I don't disagree with you. I think 85 or 86 members of the Republican Party voted against this bill, and they're going to pass with 111 Democrats voting for it because the Democrats do what the Democrats do. They know how to spend money. Look, the next generation, our kids, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren are saddled now with potentially $22 trillion in debt. It's unsustainable. This can never happen again.
Well, that's what the president said, and I thought, I think a lot of people thought he hit it on the head when he looked at that thing and said, they just finished this bill hours ago. Nobody's read it, and we're at the deadline. And this is the way we do things. I think people look at that across the country and say, are you kidding me? This is such an inefficient way to do things. Corey, as you're talking, we're watching the president walk down the steps of Air Force One. Looks like a beautiful night in Palm Beach as he begins this weekend. So you have a good weekend, too. Okay? Thanks for being here.
Thank you. You too. Thank
All right,
you.
thank you. So one group that was especially unhappy with this budget is veterans. They saw new health care provisions allowing them to choose their own doctor stripped because the bill just hours before it passed the House, that part came out. Pete Hegseth, U.S. Army combat veteran, co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend, and spends a huge amount of his life and his time supporting the veterans of this country. So what happened?
Well, what happened was the swamp happened. I hate to say it that way, but first of all, on the larger deal, the president's Achilles heel is the military. He wants to fund the military. He saw what happened under Obama and the decimation of sequestration. That's why he voted. That's why he supported this bill, even though a lot of us hoped he might veto it. Ultimately, at the VA, you had included in the bill was an opportunity for vets to choose their own, a doctor or the VA, a private option, which the president promised. At the last minute, Representative Tim Walz, he's running for governor in Minnesota, he's a Democrat, and Nancy Pelosi conspired to pull it out of the bill and instead increase more funding at the VA, which we've seen time and time again. So you add more money to the VA.
They took away the choice.
They took away the actual reforms that would give veterans real choice. And instead they said, let's add more funding. And they hoodwinked a lot of people at the last minute to do so. So again, it's how the swamp works. At the last minute to make a deal, Democrats, to get their votes, to get more money, said we're going to take out the real reforms that would have advanced the president's agenda in exchange for more money. And then Democrats will say, we help the vets. They're not helping the vets. And the president's heart is in the right place, but he's signing this bill because he supports the troops, and the vets are in a tough spot.
Here's the political question, which is what Ann Coulter was talking about when she said, congratulations, President Schumer. And, you know, here comes impeachment. Because the fear is that this alienates the people that support him and have supported the people who, you know, they believe are going to vote like him.
Sure.
And that you're going to end up with people who are in the middle deciding that Democrats are a better choice for them, like we saw in Pennsylvania with the Connor Lamb election. And, you know, he's going to lose his majority, which hasn't, you know, has worked well in some ways and not so well in others anyway.
I feel like today may have been the day that the party of fiscal responsibility in the GOP died. I mean, there isn't real commitment to that today at all. If you're not committed to fiscal responsibility, then at least be committed to reform. And from the VA and across the board, you saw them give away the farm in exchange for defense spending, which I'm supportive of. I understand why his heart is in the right place, but he lost on so many other places because members of Congress, whether it's Mitch McConnell or Paul Ryan, don't want to fight the fight and bring it to the brink. And that's why a veto could have done that. I understand why he did what he did, but we gave away a lot, and you're going to have to fight to take a lot of that terrain back.
Yeah, I mean, they got so burned shutting down the government.
If Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer love it,
they're terrified to go ahead and you know, to push that button again.
But they won the last one, Martha. The last shutdown was won. Chuck Schumer knew and then they've got the item of DACA and the wall. I think it's a fight he can win, but I understand where he's at.
Thank you, Pete.
Thanks,
good to
Martha.
see you at night.
Appreciate
Thanks for coming in.
We'll see you in the morning.
All right.
Sure.
Coming up next, the real story behind the Cambridge Analytica Facebook scandal, why it may not be the bombshell on corrupt campaigns that seems to be reported out there. My next guest knows firsthand how these things work. Former director of research and analytics for the Cruz campaign. He says it's not what it appears to be.
Feel the clarity of non-drowsy Claritin 24-hour relief when allergies occur. Day after day after day. Because life should have more wishes and less worries. Feel the clarity and live Claritin Clear.
You might take something for your heart or joints, but do you take something for your brain? With an ingredient originally found in jellyfish, Prevagen is the #1 selling brain health supplement in drugstores nationwide. Prevagen, the name to remember.
It's the buy one, get one free paint sale at Ace.
Our biggest paint sale of the year.
Buy a gallon of our top paint brands and get one free.
And you know what else is free? Our help.
With the Ace Extra Mile Promise, if you don't get everything you need in one trip, we'll bring it to you. And the delivery is free.
Don't miss the buy one, get one free paint sale. Get great savings on our top paint brands, Valspar, Clark & Kensington, and Royal. Now through Monday, only at Ace.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
This is where life expresses itself as an endless flow of energy. Are you ready? Atlantis, Bahamas at heart.
Book by March 31st for the best summer rates at 1-800-ATLANTIS or AtlantisBahamas.com.
Long John Silver's lets you skip your trip to the same old, and indulge in the different new. Like our classic Alaskan cod and shrimp basket for just $5.99. Change up what you're used to at Long John Silver's.
It's 6 a.m. 40 million Americans are waking up to a Gillette shave. And at our factory in Boston, more than 1,000 workers are starting their
No more college students should die for just wanting to join an organization.
The parents of Timothy Piazza making an emotional plea today, calling for more strict punishment for hazing suspects. Their son, Timothy, died in February of 2017 after a night of heavy drinking and hazing at Penn State University. He was left to die by the so-called brothers who were supposed to protect him. Today, Jim and Evelyn Piazza, alongside Pennsylvania State Senate Majority Leader Jake Corman, unveiled proposed legislation called the Timothy J. Piazza Anti-Hazing Law. The bill calls for more harsh penalties for people caught hazing. It requires that schools have anti-hazing policies and reporting procedures in place, and that it keeps students and parents in the know about what's going on their campuses. At the same time today, in the courtroom behind them, a preliminary hearing on charges against 11 members of the now shuttered Beta Theta Pi fraternity. Today was the first of several hearings that will determine if there's enough evidence to take that case to trial. We're keeping a close eye on this story, as you know, and we will continue to tell you all of the developments. Also developing tonight, new questions about what, if any, role Cambridge Analytica actually played in the 2016 election. The acting CEO for the consulting firm says none of the data that was mined from Facebook was actually used, saying in part, quote, "Please, can I be absolutely clear? We did not use any GSR, Global Science Research data, in the work we did in the 2016 U.S. presidential election." Here now, Chris Wilson, former director of research and analytics for the 2016 Cruz for President campaign. He's also CEO of Wilson's Perkins Allen Opinion Research. Chris, good to see you. Thanks for being here tonight. You know, this story sort of has, you know, all of the potential drama that I think a lot of people are looking for in it. But when you start to peel back actually what was in this data, whether or not it was actually used and whether or not it was actually effective, it appears that there's more to the story than meets the eye. Your thoughts?
Well, it is. I think the Cambridge Analytica story is a bit tough because their marketing efforts are so overblown that you kind of have to separate what they did from what they claim they did from what they claim they can do, from what they actually can do. And all those things come together and create a very confusing story for anybody who's just sort of listening to this. As you mentioned, their acting CEO, the reason there's an acting CEO is because the former CEO was suspended for making outrageous claims on camera about hiring Ukrainian prostitutes. I mean, that's just, it's probably so outlandish and probably never happened, but that's just the kind of thing that happens. And as he was quoted saying today, marketing is not done under oath. And so I think you've got to really kind of look at what exactly is being contended here. Well, the first part is whether or not psychographic data, which is what Cambridge says they do, was used during the presidential campaign. And they say they didn't do it for Trump. But even if they did, this research is all based on, or the psychographic targeting is all based on academic research on ocean scores that is been widely published and is available open source online from several universities. So this is not something that is some sort of secret sauce that is being done by a supervillain. Like I said, it really is, even if it was effective, the fact of that it was been taken from Facebook, I think, is outlandish in its face, and now they're saying that it wasn't anyway.
Yeah, and both the company and the Trump campaign say that none of the Facebook data was used in anything that they did. Now, the Cruz campaign also hired Cambridge Analytica at one point. Did you find their information useful?
We did. They were a data science staffing firm for us, and they had very good data scientists. The people that were on my team in Houston, I think, would define themselves as really Cruz for President employees, even though that's where we got them from. From an overall standpoint of their data, let me be clear, is there are several sources that a campaign gets data from. And without boring your listeners, I'll just tell you that there are between warranty records or there's several companies that sell this type of information, and you can get multiple pieces of data on a person. Now, the Facebook data is kind of where this all comes down to, and if there was something that was done that was wrong, it would be Cambridge gathering Facebook data under the auspices of using it for academic purposes and then repurposing it for campaigns, and that would be unethical. The Obama campaign used Facebook data in 2012. It was 100% legal for them to do it, and so did many corporations used it. And now, but the way they did it is by saying, share your information with us on the Obama campaign and let us talk to your friends, and then you chose whether or not to do that. You weren't doing it to take a personality test or for academic reasons. But that wasn't really Facebook's fault. That was somebody doing something unethical if it occurred that way. Yeah. And then the way that which they used it would be the other part of it.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of questions, as you raise, about whether or not this whole psychographic thing works. Both Alexander Kogan, who did some of this research, said they found it didn't really work that well in terms of determining or being able to influence someone's voting decision. The Trump campaign has said that they also found something similar. So, Chris, thank you very much. Just the tip of the iceberg on this, but we'll keep digging. Thank you very much. Good to see you tonight.
All right. Thank you, Martha.
So coming up, you know, attitude can be everything, and one familiar face here at Fox is living proof of that. Senior meteorologist Janice Dean is here to share her personal journey battling a potentially disabling disease. But first, the untold true story behind the infamous Chappaquiddick incident is now about to hit the big screen. We'll go behind the scenes with the movie's producer on telling the story which nearly derailed Ted Kennedy's political career. Then Chris Stirewalt on why he says this movie is part of a larger cultural reckoning. Tonight.
What do we do to help the senator?
A dead body holds a lot of secrets. Those can be the difference between guilt and innocence.
Are you saying that there's a possibility that maybe she didn't drown?
COPD makes it hard to breathe. So to breathe better, I go with a Noro.
COPD tries to say go this way. I say I'll go my own way with a Noro.
Once daily Anoro contains two medicines called bronchodilators that work together to significantly improve lung function all day and all night. Anoro is not for asthma. It contains a type of medicine that increases risk of death in people with asthma. The risk is unknown in COPD. Anoro won't replace rescue inhalers for sudden symptoms and should not be used more than once a day. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition, high blood pressure, glaucoma, prostate, bladder, or urinary problems. These may worsen with Anoro. Call your doctor if you have worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain while taking Anoro.
Ask your doctor about Anoro.
Get your first prescription free at Anoro.com.
Steinmart's famous 12-hour sale is here with huge store-wide savings. Get up to 50% off hundreds of spring sale items like famous brand dresses, shoes, bedding, and much more. Plus, save up to 75% off all clearance items this Friday and Saturday at Steinmart.
We believe in rock and roll. We believe in blasting it down the fairway, turning up the heat and the fun.